live. She knows one live. So, 2 viewers in the audience now. Cool. Talk. Questions? Yes, I eat cow. I am not proud. Smoking is quite good. Hello, Harry? Yes, Chris, I'm quite sure about that. Other than poppies, this is the oldest cultivated plant there is. Like, we evolved with it so much, we actually have a cannabinoid system, like, in our brains, like, even without smoking. Just like without ever doing any external opiates, you have opiate receptors all over. In fact, the term endorphin is a shortening of the two terms endogenous morphine. Endogenous meaning chemical made inside the body. how long? 25 years, roughly. But yeah, the only plant we've evolved with more is the opium poppy. We have opiate receptors. Dopamine is one of our neurotransmitters. I mean, yeah. Anyway, any drug law there is comes from the United States' influence. We're the one that pushed the whole anti-drug position on the world. Um, and all of our drug laws, you can't go back and find a single one that wasn't made for totally racist reasons. My day was okay. It had some good, it had some bad. I did a new outreach territory, which was interesting. I'm always used to just hitting Manhattan. Well, I just like arguing pro smoking anyway, because I know all the dirty little secrets about the war on drugs. So yeah, most people don't know, and this is the biggest um like just most blatant example that the whole um attitude towards drugs and persecution of those who choose to use them is a bunch of bullshit. And that's um here in the US, like our drug organization in recent times is called the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. But it hasn't always been that way. Um, for at least the first half of the time that drugs were made illegal, um, they were called just the Narcotics Bureau. Um, and the person that was the first administrator, like, who started up the Narcotics Bureau, was a politician, like, Washington worker, whatever, named Henry Anslinger. Um, if you know anything about, like, the racism behind laws made, you've heard the name Henry Anslinger before, because he was extremely racist. But yeah, what most people don't realize, Henry Anslinger's job, before he was the first administrator or first director or whatever of the Narcotics Bureau, he was like the administrator of the Department of Prohibition. And then we went, wait a minute. We let all those suffragettes talk us into this prohibition, and it's really not working. People are drinking more, and it's causing more crime, and, let's just legalize it again. At least we'll be making taxes. Fuck it. And we ended prohibition. Well, the minute we did that, Henry Anslinger was out of a job. So instead, he went back to Congress and petitioned them about the horrors and dangers of drugs, and had them make the Narcotics Bureau, for the sole reason that he was out of a job because we re-legalized alcohol. Uh, I don't know if I could answer that. Am I socialist or communist? I mean, I agree with principles of both, but neither has been implemented in any sort of a positive way. in recent times. Now, okay, there have been some socialist policies in like Europe and whatnot, especially Scandinavia and Northern Europe, that have been had some like really socialist leaning policies, and they work in they worked in the manner that they help the general population of this. But any type of modern government, the way they're set up, they're whether you're talking democracy, monarchy, um, you know, parliamentary monarchy, um, democracy, republic, etc., etc. Any of them in recent times, they're made like as their primary purpose is to support themselves. Like the primary purpose of a government isn't really to govern the people and aid the common citizen. No, the primary purpose of the government is to keep the government afloat, at least in modern times. And it's that, it okay, to properly explain it, it's like saying that um it would be like in my views on the social or what should be the common social practices of humankind. Um, what most people call politics is like an Einsteinian revolution, um, when like compared to where we're at now. It's not just taking the same like playing field and figuring something out. No, you leave that playing alone and throw in a whole nother dimension. And like, you're totally separate from that. Because I think that it's more than a political problem. It's sociological or psychological or behavioral problem. And it's our need to hoard stuff is really the issue. You get rid of that and the problems work themselves out. It's the need to be like, hey, wait a minute, this stuff or this space, this land, this whatever is mine and no one else can use it unless they compensate. Which, I mean, yeah, even all of that is kind of superfluous. It's just the general, no, I'm not going to do anything for anyone else unless they make it worth my while attitude. That stupid part of the ego that thinks that among 7+ billion people, well, I'm special. Or there's been how many thousands of generations. Oh, I'm something new. That, yeah, it's that stupid part of the ego that refuses to admit to the past, the future, or the fact that space is enormous and enormous to the point where anything is a possibility. She should have been some. 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 I don't know. I, I have to say that I had a slight favoritism, a slight preference when it came to attachment to my son as opposed to my daughter, even though my daughter was older and had been around longer with me. And I don't think that's anything other than the basic behavioral desire, like to connect with someone similar to you know, because he was male like me and very much reminded me of myself as a small child. My son was my favorite. I mean, it could also have something to do with um the fact that he was 2 years younger than his sister. And I was forced out and while trying to rebuild my life after having had, my home and my lifestyle and everything I knew ripped from me. And I don't even mean lifestyle like, oh, I was accustomed to living at a certain level or whatnot. No, like lifestyle, like for almost 3 years prior until I wasn't allowed back. I wasn't kicked out. I ended up in the ICU on life support, and my parents, you know, traveled up to several states because they thought they might have to make last final arrangements for me. And rather than saying anything to me myself, like herself, she just sent a message to one of them that I couldn't come back. Prior to that, I had been a stay-at-home dad for almost 3 years. So my lifestyle was being around the kids all day and being the caretaker. Um, but yeah, it, she decided that I wasn't worthy of any of that anymore. Like, that's her decision to make. But anyway, and I got lured um, from the south. I had been originally born and raised and spent the first 20 something, like 22 years of my life in tropical southeast Florida. Um, then moved to North Carolina for 11 years. Was married with my kids for about 5 out of 6 years. Um, my daughter's not biologically mine, but was only 8 months old when she came into my life, so I've been daddy as long as she would speak. Most importantly, I love her like my own, and always treated her as such. But and yeah, after being left in a horrible position, I got lured up north here. First to live in Jersey, then ended up homeless in New York City. But yeah, lured up by a friend of 14 years prior that her and I started dating. Who was totally batshit crazy, majorly abusive, and probably cheated on me more than any other partner put together, spanning the several decades. Um, and made me homeless here in New York City. Since I worked really hard to get my life back together, and I'm now in my own apartment, and, here in the city and everything, working 4 days a week, doing harm reduction and Hep C care navigation with one of the largest community-based nonprofit organizations in the country. Um, yeah, she still doesn't want me to have any part of their lives. So the only time I can talk to them is when they're at my sister's. Well, yes, because she's 2 years older and you know 9 compared to 6 or 7 rather is quite the difference. I most certainly prefer when she's over at my sister's and I get to talk to her as opposed to my son. Because he is usually either too preoccupied or, when he does, like, really talk to me, um, he's, more of the, you know, the type to be like grilling why I'm not still with his mom, etc., etc. Um, and that only happens like maybe 1 out of every 5 times I talk to him. Like, we talk long enough and get deep enough that he goes there. But, my daughter and I, like, have more in-depth conversations than him and I usually ever do. Just, whenever we talk, because she's a couple years older. But, like I said, because I connect more with him, because I see myself in him so much. I mean, not only appearances, like the way we both look at similar ages, it's just breathtaking. But just mentality and everything. Um, because I connect more with him, he's just my favorite. But, that's why I think that, um, it's kind of paradox that the daughter is, you much more attached to the father figure, and the son much more attached to the mother. Because, the two girls and the two guys butt heads or whatever. Yeah, it goes back to that part of the ego that wants to go, well, despite the 7+ billion people on the planet, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years we've been around. I'm absolutely unique and special. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I guess maybe that's just the route evolution took, you know, a little bit farther than everyone else for those that were destined to be healers. But I can't turn around again. And sometimes you are the only one who makes any difference. I said, don't you lose that you strangers always come when you go away. Sunshine the bed when you play. The rain, it always comes when you go away. Now, you are the one. It always you go away. Yeah, one makes any difference what I said. Then it always go away. The rain always when you go away. Go away. Then it always go away. I don't know. I guess I just really always liked that song because you know he wrote it because he was from Seattle where it was really rainy, and I grew up in South Florida where it was just as rainy. formula have